Out the window, the two watched the pink mauve over the horizon. Look, what an amazing sunset, the man admired. I have goosebumps. He went to the window. The young woman remained lying on the bed. She was smiling. Steve remembered how he met her. He was walking along the seashore one evening. He stared pensively at the vast expanse of water, and suddenly someone touched his shoulder lightly. He flinched and turned around. A woman stood in front of him. Hi, he said hello to the stranger. Good evening, she replied. Steve stepped aside, and the moon illuminated her. Dark skin, tall and slender. Long legs, high breasts, and boasted muscles. The woman wore a short dress with open shoulders and deep cleavage. What's your name, beautiful? Steve asked. Agatha. She held out a thin, graceful hand to him. He took it in his and brought it to his lips, barely touching the warm velvety skin. I don't even know how to act with you, he grinned. Maybe you come out of the sea while I turn my back. Are you only a vision? The woman reluctantly let go of her hand. So make sure I'm real. Agatha stepped toward him, wrapped her arms around his neck, and nibbled on his lips. The kiss was salty. The woman must have sworn before she appeared in front of Steve. Now they were practically never apart. They lived in the suburbs, in a large mansion. It stretched for several kilometers. It was surrounded by a forest belt, and in some places it was replaced by meadows and fields. The house was all there because Steve's parents lived in Europe. The bulk of his father's business was there. And now the couple were returning. For 3 years they had fallen in love with Italy. The warm climate and the hospitality of the inhabitants brought them on. But the businessman decided to build a few more pasta factories in his native land, using Italian standards. Anna, his wife, was also tired and the life of a housewife. She dreamed of running her own small business in the States. They were soon to appear in their own home. Steve wanted to introduce Agatha to his parents right away. She was already his fiancée, and his parents had waited so long for him to get married. The next morning, Steve, in high spirits, went downstairs to the kitchen. The man was glad to eat alone, for there was no one else in the dining room but him. After reading until noon at his place, he went out and knocked at his bride's room. No one answers. He pushed open the door and found himself inside. Agatha was not there. The bed was untouched. Steve looked around and realized that all of her things were gone. What the hell? He wondered. I thought she'd be back in her bedroom by morning. He literally snipped her phone number. But no one answered. That evening, Steve met his parents at the airport, and they noticed his sad look. What's wrong, my boy? You're not wearing your face, Anna asked. My fiancé is missing. I wanted to introduce you, he answered confusedly, raising his gray eyes to his mother. Where could she have gone? Wait, calm down. Are you sure you know there is nothing left in her bedroom? His father patted his shoulder. Yeah, it's like no one ever lived there. But maybe she went to her father, her mother. Let's go to them. Perhaps she's quietly at home right now and just decided to take a break from her relationship with you, Anna suggested. But it's unthinkable, Mom. She's been dusting me off, and then she disappears without explanation. Well, that's the way it is, son, said Nicholas Ford with a bitter chuckle. Men think women are crazy about them, but they are not. No, Daddy, that's not her. Agatha is special. I think we should go to her parents' house. I know the address. I've driven her up the driveway a couple of times, Steve suggested. Will you help me? Of course. You can count on us, as always, the parents replied in unison. The family of jeweler Michael Davis lived in the heart of the city, in a huge modern apartment. The skyscraper was considered one of the prestigious ones. A man opened the door. He was tall, dark-faced, with eyes as black as olives. Agatha's father motioned for them to take comfortable chairs in the lobby. He introduced himself. He was of Arab descent. "To what do I owe this visit?" he asked. "I've read a lot about you, Mr. Ford, in press. One of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. So what will we talk about?" "We are going to talk about Agatha," Steve began, his eyes downcast. "Agatha? Well, all right." Steve faltered. I proposed to her." "When?" The man was taken aback by his words and slumped down on the couch in confusion. "Well, not long ago. She said yes, and I really wanted her to meet my parents. But this morning, she just disappeared without a trace." Anna and Nicholas nodded in agreement. "Agatha was at home yesterday and didn't go out at all. I personally was with her all evening, and we played preference." Michael shifted his eyebrows. "Tell me, is she still at home now?" Steve asked. "Of course. She's in her room now, learning her next role. Not the main one yet, no, but there's a lot of words. She wants to be in a movie." Steve shuddered with his whole body and turned to the landlord. "Please bring her in here. She will explain everything to you." "It's an honor to be a member of your family," Davis replied. "But I'm sorry, this engagement is serious, and my daughter has been living in my house the whole time. She never left the apartment for more than 8 hours, and that was only to and from rehearsal." "Oh my gosh, I don't understand anything." Steve clutched his head. "Well, don't feel bad. I will get her now. Maybe you really have her confused with someone else. You look respectable too, and your father has an impeccable reputation. So I don't see why you have to make up this story. I don't see the point of the benefit." "Well, you stay here. I will go upstairs." Steve listened to the footsteps of the stairs, which he thought sounded in time with the beat of his heart. And there, in front of him, was a young woman. She was very beautiful, and there was an overpowering tenderness about her. Long dark hair, almond-shaped eyes, perfect feature. It was Agatha. The woman's gaze was soft, sparkling, kind. She looked around at everyone and then took a seat on the couch. It was clear from her demeanor that she was seeing everyone for the first time. "Hello," she smiled broadly. "There's my girl," David said, sitting down beside her and hugging her. "By our laws, she's not allowed to live with a man. Not until she's married. We honor everything our ancestors bequeathed to us." "I can see that," Steve said. "So I've had the experience of meeting a woman who looks just like your daughter." "I stand by my father's words. I was never anyone's fiancé. I'm very surprised. Shocked, you might say." "Yeah, you're different," Steve replied. "I just don't understand who was impersonating you and for what purpose. It's just the mystery of the century that we all have to solve. Sum up the real Agatha Davis." And the woman who looked like her was on an airplane at the same time. She was looking pensively out the window. Eva had no trouble playing the role of Agatha. After all, they were twin sisters. A few hours later, she was sitting in a cafe on the shores of the sea, and across from her were the eyes of the man she would have given her life for without hesitation. "Peter, you could at least tell me," she whispered. "I've been in bed for days with a strange man I don't need." "Eva, you're twisting my words, honey. I missed you, and I waited. And anyway, who do you owe this combination and future prospect to? I'm doing this for you. I'm the one who realized you're her sister. I wonder why your parents gave you up, and you grew up in a foster homes. I don't know. Before you found me, I didn't realize I had such a rich family. So, what's our future? Would you mind telling me? You will step out of the shadows at the appointed hour. If everything goes smoothly, I promise you that soon you'll be the sole owner of the business, and I will be your husband, if you wish." The handsome man in the fancy leather jacket smiled contentedly. Neither the Davis family nor the Ford family were ever able to find out anything about the young woman who played Steve's fiancée, but the man became infatuated with the real Agatha. Next to this beauty, he was as if flying up into the sky, soaring on the crest of his feelings, rapture, adoration. She was magnificent. There was not an ounce of falsity or pretense in her. Sincere, open, bright, the woman conquered his heart forever. He was in no hurry, realizing that intimacy with his beloved is possible only after marriage. Only in this way she could become his, because it did not contradict the principles and traditions of the Davis family. A man wanted to propose to his beloved beautifully. He invited her, together with her father and mother, to his house for dinner. Anna did a great job, and the meal was great. The parents of the bride and groom found many points of contact on business. There, in front of everyone, Steve asked his beloved to marry him, to which Michael Davis nodded approvingly, and Anna Ford applauded enthusiastically. Time passed, and finally, the long-awaited wedding day arrived. For the celebration, the young woman chose a snow-white satin floor-length dress decorated with guipure on the back and the neckline area. The hairdresser invited to the house arranged her dark hair in a strict high hairstyle and decorated it with light white orchids. Carefully pinned up the short veil, Agatha applied the light makeup herself. Steve opted for the streak suit, the color of coffee and milk, and boiling white shirt. The marriage ceremony was simple and elegant. After the official part, the company went to the restaurant. The evening was unforgettable, and at the night they made love frantically, and in between they chirped softly. It was their world, where there was no room for other people, warm, passionate, and tender. With each passing day, the couple's feelings grew stronger. Both were responsible people and did everything to strengthen their marriage. It's been a year. Their intimacy only increased. Agatha was a wonderful hostess, could keep up any small talk, and always looked marvelous. Now Steve passionately dreamed of having a child. His wife said that he could seriously prepare for such a case, undergo a checkup, improve his health. That will be in shape. Agatha was very active in sports and often disappeared in gyms, swam in swimming pools. For their wedding anniversary, they bought an excursion to the caves. The trip out of town was planned for the evening. They got on the bus, held hands, and admired the views out the window all the way. A string of apple orchards stretched along the fields. High hills and mountain peaks loom here and there. Finally, they reached the place. The guide led them into a tunnel lit from above by electric lights, and then into another space. An underground lake opened before their eyes. The water was warm and bright blue. Steam was rising from it. "It's hydrogen sulfide," the tour guide explained. Steve pulled his wife into some dark entrance. They walked forward together. After a couple of meters, they came to a fork in the road. The young men were alone in the cold, eternal primordial woods. The beam of the flashlight slid along the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. They walked forward for a while, until they realized they were lost. "Don't worry, take a breath. I will find my way back." Steve took a skein of rope out of his pocket and handed one to his wife. "Just don't let it out of your hands. Promise?" The frightened woman nodded. The man walked back. Minutes turned into hours. The husband never returned. Agatha continued to wait, feeling darkness and despair envelop her. She began to gasp from the panic and slumped to the floor, and soon she lost consciousness. Steve and the rescuers found her lying on a sharp rock, her whole body bruised and bruised. As they made their way forward, he didn't notice that the thin rope had frayed on the scarp corners and snapped. He was terrified at the thought that he would not be able to find her. But praise be to Providence, professionals had come to rescue. They loaded Agatha onto the stretcher and carried her out of the cave. She woke up in a hospital bed, her head buzzing. "You've been unconscious for hours." "I'm sorry, sweetheart. It's not your fault." The man didn't recognize his wife's voice. It was so weak and hoarse. "She's in shock," the doctor told Steve. "I think we should let her get stronger and get some sleep." The journey to the caves did not go in vain for her. The woman suffered a severe shock, and just as she began to recover and return home, a new tragedy struck. Her parents had disappeared. At the time, she went missing in caves. They were vacationing in the Canary Islands. Nicholas Ford called them and informed them of the incident. The Davishes urgently had to return. They rushed and hired a private jet on the island. It was a fatal mistake. An old, worn-out model could not withstand another takeoff and fell apart in the air. Steve supported his wife with all his might. He and his parents never left her side, but it was like she'd gone mad. The calm, sensible Agatha had turned into a beast, chased everyone out of her room, wouldn't talk to anyone. In time, the young woman calmed down, but she was different. Her habits had changed radically. She used to get up in the mornings and lie down at the first light of the setting sun, but now she would stay up until midnight, and her husband could not wake her up in the morning until dinner time. Rude words and expressions appeared in her speech that he had never heard before. Agatha became very irritable and answered ordinary questions sharply and reluctantly, and the tenderness with which she had bestowed on her husband earlier was gone. As soon as Agatha's parents were declared dead, she became the owner of all her father's jewelry showrooms. The employees disliked her and feared her. The woman also shut herself off from her husband and stopped letting him into her soul. Their two-story cottage, purchased after their marriage, was empty almost all the time. It was filled only with the bustle and chatter of hired laborers, domestic staff, and the gardener. The owners hardly ever lived in the house. And then Agatha disappeared. Didn't say anything to anyone. Just disappeared. Didn't answer her phone. She got a hotel room. She never left it, waiting to meet with the one man she had adored all her life. When he showed up on her doorstep, she threw herself at him. "I can't take it any more, Peter." "Stop your hysteric. Look at how far we've come. We've only got a little more to go. Our goal is just around the corner. I already have a plan to free us from the forts." "It's terrible. What do we want to do?" Eva blinked and cried. "Pull yourself together, darling. Just a little bit more, and you and I will soon soar to the very heights where no judgment can reach us. We'll be like gods ourselves, just you and me, my magnificent Eve. And I will change my name to Adam, and we will be together forever." "Really? You promise?" The woman smiled. Eva believed Peter, for she had been in love with him for a long time, ever since the orphanage where they had grown up together. Blind in my love. She didn't realize that she was one of his many patients. He was just taking advantage of her loneliness. And so, doing his biddings, she returned to Steve. After a stormy reconciliation, she went to Peter to tell him that she had made all the preparations for their plan. She persuaded Anna and Nicholas, along with her son, to go to the sea. There, in the romantic setting, she promised to tell them the good news. Since everyone was expecting an hear from her, they quickly agreed. All that was left for the mess up the breaks, and that was it. She would be forever unsealed with Peter. Eva entered his room and was stunned. In front of her was the path to the bedroom, lined with rose petals and decorated with burning candles in the shape of hearts. She opened the door. On the white sheets the woman saw a happy and excited Peter, and in his arms a graceful Chinese woman. Eva turned and, swaying, ran away. With the beautiful, brightly colored flowers in his hands, Steve returned home. His wife was sitting on the bed, shaking with sobs. He tossed the bouquet to the floor and sat down beside her on his knees. Agatha, believe me, we'll get through this. He tried to reassure her. You have been through a lot. Don't touch me. You can touch me now. I'm Eva, the copy of the real Agatha. She's my twin sister. If you don't believe me now, you will never see your wife. She was switched back in the cave for me. She's a prisoner, look out of the daylight in a basement, as she bore you a child. I should have destroyed them, but I couldn't. The woman's body began to convulse, and she fell. Quickly bend over. I will tell you where you can find her. I'll be gone soon, she wheezed. Steve grabbed her in the armful and pulled her against him. She called out the coordinates, and in the same instant her eyes went black. It took a squad of police officers to take Agatha, who surrounded the house where the woman and child were hidden. The owners swore they had no idea who had been brought to them. They admitted that they had received a lot of money. Steve and his lawful wife took a long time to recover from the whole affair. Fear remained in their hearts. They never told their son Alex what had happened. He grew up in a happy ignorance, and both thanked fate for being able to provide him with a joyful childhood and love.